Welcome, everyone, to the Sonoma Spiel. My name is Tim Zahner with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. We have in our country the saying, we say, we the people, in order to secure the domestic tranquility and ensure the general welfare, do hear our name, blah, blah, blah. We also talked about government of the people, by the people, for the people. We love in this country to be involved in our political process. Right now, of course, it gets a little intense at times, but it's important. And outside observers have often said that one of the strengths of America was like everyone was kind of involved, whether it was at this huge presidential level or just down to like the local community trying to build a little park level and getting, the non-government talking to the citizens and everyone involved. And that's really important. And I think Sonoma Valley is a crucial part of that. Sonoma is also, people vote in this county a lot. We have a lot of turnout and stuff like that. So for that reason, today I have a very special guest. I know each time I say that, I say I have a very special guest. This time I really, actually do mean it. I have a very special guest. She is with the county government. She's a county supervisor. She's been doing everything. She's also going to retire soon. So I'm hoping she just goes out the door blazing, telling me all sorts of stuff. I have Susan Gorin. How are you?
I am great on this gorgeously sunny red flag day, unfortunately.
Well, it's always sunny in Sonoma, first of all.
Well, no, it's not always sunny, but it is. But it is today,
right.
And we actually hope in a month or two it will be less than sunny.
It'll be less than sunny.
It'll be providing moisture.
It'll be that by law I have to tell people, because I work in the tourism business, it rains from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. and that's it.
Do we live in Camelot? Is that what you tell them?
That's where we live, Susan.
And the leaves simply blow away.
And they just go away, and it's so nice. So Susan Gorin, you are our District 1 supervisor.
Yes.
For Sonoma Valley.
For the next 2.5 months.
That's exactly what I was hoping. So this is like, they say you have a swan song, like you get a, but that's, like your chance to do your final thing.
You want me to sing now?
No, well, I think what I love about this is that this is your chance to kind of talk about, how things are going and what's happened and politics and things like that. But before we get into that, can you explain to people who don't know what a county supervisor is and what they do?
I've been in local government for my entire adult life, serving on the Santa Rosa School Board and then the Santa Rosa City Council and Mayor of Santa Rosa. Yes, you even elected the Santa Rosa girl to the first district supervisor.
Oh my gosh. Now, for those who don't know, that's a scandal.
It is a scandal because people in Sonoma Valley feel like they are not represented or they could not be represented by anybody that was really from Santa Rosa. It's a long way up Highway 12.
I think it's like 20 minutes at least.
Oh, it's longer than that.
It's so far
like
away.
40 to 45
minutes away.
So I never aspired to higher office, although Noreen Evans tried to encourage me to run for her assembly seat.
She was a state
to the state assembly. Okay. And I was never interested in being in my car, carpooling to the state capitol.
Well, plus you got to be in Sacramento.
In Sacramento.
Nothing wrong with Sacramento.
It's hot and foggy, probably at the same time. And I love local government because I'm able to sit down and talk with you.
Right.
We just had coffee and lunch at a coffee shop.
That was good.
And I'm not interested in Sacramento or, heaven forbid, Washington and having to be on a plane forever. I love local community. And in spite of the fact that it means that I am accessible in the coffee shop, I just met someone who said, guess who I am? And he's back.
I love the fact that he said, do you know who I am? And you had this kind of look like, why don't you tell me?
Yes, and that's my standard response because I meet so many people in so many different contexts, and I know their face, and I know their name, and I don't always know it right on the tip of my tongue. But as soon as he started talking, I said, Jack, that's you.
Oh, you kind of put him into the context and understood where he was.
So we had a good conversation, and we'll connect. I told him a little bit about what we want to talk about, the community plaza.
Oh, good.
And it's been lovely serving 12 years as the first district supervisor.
Okay, so you've been here 12 years.
12 years as supervisor.
Okay.
So what a supervisor does.
Yeah, what do they do?
We are the local government for many, many people living, especially those living in the unincorporated areas.
Okay.
If you live in the city of Sonoma, you are served well by the city council and the city manager and the city staff.
Okay.
So if you have challenges or questions, you can go to any of them to get your questions answered.
Got it.
And yes, we know the roads in Sonoma are better paved than the roads in unincorporated Sonoma County.
Wait, have you been told that once or twice?
Once or twice, and I've also been told that they're better in Napa County and they're better in Marin County, and there is a reason for that. But it gives us pleasure. And when I was elected 12 years ago, I had the good fortune to recruit and hire an amazing woman, former council member, mayor from Cotati, Pat Gilardi, and she really helped me through the learning curve. We learned together, and we provided great services. And then we started having fires, and we really needed more staff support. So over the years, over the past 6 years, I've been able to add 3 additional staff members. And of course, during that time, we now have formed 2 municipal advisory councils. This is the voice of the local communities, the Springs MAC and the North Sonoma Valley MAC.
Okay.
But we also have the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Council, representatives from all over Sonoma Valley. That it's just wonderful to have experienced staff people helping those 3 bodies, preparing agendas and bringing all the topics at hand. And so I not only am the recipient of many with legitimate issues and concerns, including paving roads. I can't make light of that.
Right.
But it's been, and most people know I lost my home in the fire, but it was really intensely important that my staff and I were there meeting with folks going through the shock, grieving, cleanup, recovery process.
2017 fires.
And the 2020 glass fire.
Right.
So with each of those fires that significantly affected folks in my district, and I should say that my district has been somewhat expanded through redistricting.
Okay.
The boundary used to be Farmers Lane in Santa Rosa, and now it's extended all the way into almost downtown Santa Rosa, including Memorial Hospital.
And so just so people understand, every 10 years when we do the census, we also have to redistrict and balance by population the different districts. We have 5 of them in our county. I believe in California law, your county can have 5. It can go up more, but 5 is your minimum, same with cities. So it sounds like when the population changes, they kind of go to different places for your line to move. Is that
It does.
correct? Okay.
Santa Rosa grew quite a bit in other parts of the city. Sonoma Valley doesn't really like to grow. So,
Yeah, if you don't build houses, it will change the politics.
It won't change the politics for sure, even though we know of many, many folks who desperately need housing in Sonoma Valley. And so we can talk about the creation of the housing element in the general plan coming up. But essentially, I am the local government for many people with challenges.
Got it. Okay.
With water, sewer, roads, law enforcement.
That's what the county does. Just
Planning,
so people don't know,
zoning,
you are the basic level of government for people who don't live in cities is county. And the county has the charge of roads, sewer, water, public safety.
Trash pickup.
And then also you're kind of an arm of the state. You're actually a division of the state. So when it comes to social services, the county provides a lot of the social services at the state or through the federal government. Right? You're the
Exactly. And when people say, "Oh, I pay so much in tax dollars," then I said, "Well, yes, you do pay a lot, and we appreciate that. We use that to pave roads, but we also use it to finance our criminal justice system, as well as many projects out of Health and Human Services and other arms of the government."
It takes money to have a police officer
A
firefighter,
it's shocking,
and a
isn't
teacher.
It? Yes.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, I guess it makes sense to have those things.
In schools,
Yeah.
Teachers were always paid, whether they were paid poorly or now better.
Right.
That's what we hope, because they are such an important job. But up until recently, we've had amazing community volunteers with our volunteer fire departments. And it's one of the changes that happened during the time that I was supervisor, is that we have changed the paradigm and shrinking the number of fire districts from 40-something to many fewer regional service or regional fire districts. So now we have Sonoma Valley that has every fire district except Shell Vista, and we've heard indications that they are interested in joining. And Sonoma County Fire actually has all the areas around Santa Rosa.
So, Susan, do you think, is that the function of the county kind of growing up and urbanizing, and like where before you had a lot of volunteer firefighters all over the place? Now it's like we need professional firefighters year round, and we need to consolidate a little bit. Is that kind of the pattern we're seeing?
We certainly did have that conversation even before 2017, but 2017 brought it very close to home that we needed to do a much better job of professionalizing, training, equipping, and recruiting and hiring and paying professional firefighters. That was the challenge that Sonoma County was experiencing over time, is that we had many amazing multi-generational families living here, and you know, even older folks would volunteer with a fire company. They were experienced, they were good, and we're getting older, and there are fewer permanent residents, a lot of visitors. We did not have the folks able to volunteer with our volunteer fire
With the level of training is required.
Exactly.
And also, you have more people here now, as the density's increased.
Exactly.
So there might be the argument. I know firefighting, a lot of their calls are actually paramedic calls, right?
Exactly.
A lot of medical stuff. So it's even more than just putting out a fire. It's someone broke their hip. There was, God forbid, a car crash or something like that.
And
you need
they're
professionals.
the first responders. And now they literally are the first responders because they've taken over, turned in a bid for responding to medical emergencies. So there now are medical response team, as well as the folks on the. But I need to thank the voters for supporting Measure H on the ballot. Was in March maybe or June, because we are taxing ourselves to increase the staffing of our fire districts and the training and the equipment. So that was very, very helpful in moving us forward into professionalizing our firefighting capabilities.
I want to switch to something then. You just mentioned Measure H for people who don't live in California. We have, and some other states, of course, have these. We have a lot of voter propositions. I keep calling them prepositions, but that's
initiatives.
Initiatives, thank you.
But there are propositions also.
So basically in California, we elect people to go, and they go to Sacramento and they represent us. We have Assembly and a Senate. And then we don't trust them to do their jobs. So we're going to vote on our own laws too, for some reason. So 100 years ago, we came up with the initiative process. And my understanding is California has the largest constitution because it has so many laws that we all vote on.
Right.
All sorts of them. You mentioned just Prop H there, but has that changed how you have to do your job? Because if you're trying to think of how are we going to govern the county, how are we going to handle the money, and then all of a sudden, 66% of us, the great unwashed voters, say, "Hey, supervisors, you should also do this." Does that affect how you guys do your job?
Yes, but it's even more basic than that, because some of the constraints that we work under are as a result of voter-approved initiatives. For example, Proposition 13 in, 1978?
Yeah, the third rail of American politics.
Third rail.
I dare you to touch it.
Yes,
Can you explain what that is so people know what it is?
It is, and legitimately so. Seniors especially were being priced out of their homes because their property taxes were being increased significantly every year. Okay. And so groups moved forward with an initiative that restricts government's ability to increase property taxes more than 2% a year.
Okay.
That in of itself creates inequality. because we have older folks, like your parents, still
Yes.
living in their homes, paying
Right.
property taxes that they were assessed at maybe 30 years ago. And we have a young family with a couple of kids moving into the house next to them,
Exact
very
same house.
similar.
Exact same house,
And
essentially.
probably spending twice or three times or
much
four
more, much more,
times
yeah.
the property taxes. Is that fair?
Right.
And every so often, we have another initiative on the ballot that gives benefits to veterans and this group and that's, and alleviates their responsibilities of paying additional taxes.
Right.
At some point, we're going to have a reckoning, but I don't see it anytime soon.
Interesting.
But I do know that it may be one of the reasons that we are losing young families to other places. They simply can't afford to live here because of the cost of housing and now the cost of insurance.
I've heard it equated to a toothpaste tube. You squeeze the toothpaste hard enough, it's going to come out the cap or the end.
Right.
And we've been squeezing it for a long time. And Prop 13 definitely is layered into a lot of the issues we have with housing and infill development. And I mean, there's also what Californians know as CEQA, which is a thing where you can use environmental law to stop housing. There's a lot of issues you guys have to worry about.
Well, I also should say that it forces local governments to put sales tax and utility taxes and a lot of other taxes on the ballot. They simply do not have enough revenue, even though we think they do, because of the cost of housing for their employees and the cost of hiring firefighters and policemen, et cetera. So we need, and the cost of paving roads. So we need to raise revenue. That's why I was mayor of Santa Rosa when we moved forward in one of those revenue measures, because we were in danger of closing down all of our recreational facilities. I
remember that.
We were that strapped during the downturn of the economy. And I know the city of Sonoma has some revenue measures, and a lot of the other cities routinely put revenue measures on. And I think we're headed for a collision, because I think it's Sebastopol putting a revenue measure on there. And we have other revenue measures asking to tax voters to support programs for children. Used to be financed through the tobacco tax, and the good news is fewer
people are smoking. Yeah.
So I served on the First Five Commission, and they finance amazing programs for young families and children, and they were desperately short of money and had to shut off some of those programs.
But now that no one smokes as much, there's not much tax money coming in from that.
So I'm going to resist really advocating for a number of the taxes, but I really encourage you to support Measure I. It's for the kids.
I'm gonna pull this up while people watching on YouTube. I do have my Sonoma County Voter Information Guide, which is supplemental to my State of California guide.
Which weighs about 50 pounds.
Yeah, these are like anyone young person doesn't know this, but there used to be a thing called phone books, which had all these phone numbers in them.
Right.
These things are heavy, and every year, every election, you get these usually. And Measure I, it has the for and against and stuff like that. That's a lot of homework for voting. But you're saying Measure I is what
usually
you're saying.
the ballot statements are in Spanish and English.
I have the Medida en la Boleta Electoral Local 5, yeah.
Oh,
so,
I'm impressed.
So we've got them all in here, and I might have grabbed the Spanish one. No, I got the English one. It's both. So I is this childcare one.
It is. It's for children. I is for kids.
Got it. And there's also, I think,
and the W
is for the library.
Reauthorization of the existing tax for
sales
libraries.
tax. Okay.
For libraries.
I like our libraries. I'm going to go on the record. Big fan of libraries.
Support libraries. Absolutely.
We have a tiny one where I live. We have a great one here in Sonoma Valley. The libraries are well used in Sonoma County, and they're great resources.
At some point, we are able to create a library in the Springs.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I know someone who does libraries that they build them with housing, like senior housing or something like that, and they kind of combined use, which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Oakmont has their own library, and
libraries are good.
Lincoln Valley has a great library.
Has anyone ever run for office saying they hate libraries?
I can't imagine they would be elected if they did that. It's like motherhood and apple pie.
Exactly, in the
We
library.
love kids, we love our parents, and we love libraries.
So Susan, how did you get involved in politics? Why did you end up in this job where people can grab you at coffee shops and complain about potholes or whatever? And you're like, wow, that seems like a great job. Like, what happened? What'd you go wrong, Susan?
I know. I wake up every morning and say, how did I get here? I call myself actually the accidental supervisor because it was never my game plan when I was graduating from high school that, gee, I was lusting after becoming an elected official. And in fact, I grew up in a working class family. My dad was unemployed in the steel industry, very, very cynical of government. And he passed away some time ago, probably a good thing, because if he knew I was an elected official,
You couldn't believe it.
he would probably keel over.
Well, maybe
on
you're
the spot.
solving all the problems that he had.
Maybe.
Wait, where did you grow up, Susan?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, mostly.
Okay. And
Born,
so your dad was
born
in
in
steel.
Massachusetts and then moved to Pittsburgh. My dad was in the steel industry
Okay.
after World War II. That's
That was
where
a
his job was.
big,
Yes.
huge industry in that entire
It was.
strip of, between the coal fields
And-
of
and the
Appalachia
rivers.
and the rivers. And Pittsburgh has beautiful bridges and the cool mountains.
And it went through a really dirty period where
Yeah.
the air was filthy, and they cleaned up the act. A lot of the steel companies moved out of downtown Pittsburgh along the banks of the rivers into more inland communities.
Okay.
And in fact, Joe's grandfather actually worked in the blast furnace of one of those steel
Is
industries.
Joe's your husband?
Joe is my husband.
So he's also from Pittsburgh?
He is on. Yes. The hidden secret is we met each other in high school.
Really?
And no, I was not pregnant when we got married, too young.
This is a no judgment zone, people. Wait,
we
so
did
where's your
marry-
Pittsburgh accent?
We did marry way too young.
Wow. Yeah.
I can toss around the yins with
The
the
Yins
best
and the
of 'em.
Waters and the. That's so funny.
And the pops and the gum bands.
Look at that. It can come out. Okay, good. No, Pittsburgh, you and Andy Warhol, I think, are the two famous things to come out of
And
Pittsburgh.
if you go to Pittsburgh, you certainly need to go to Pittsburgh because it is a beautiful city full of, and I never knew what advantages we have of that Carnegie robber baron collected dinosaurs from all over the world. And we had rooms and rooms of full-scale dinosaurs.
Well, if it wasn't for Carnegie, we wouldn't have our visitor center because it's in a
That's
former
true.
Carnegie Library.
Carnegie Library.
And you have that cool inclinator, this incline thing that goes up these
Incline.
hills.
In fact, that's the other guilty pleasure is that's where he proposed to me on top of Mount Washington.
Oh, really?
We did not take the incline up there. We drove up there.
Oh, okay.
But you could see the gorgeous view of downtown Pittsburgh, especially
wow.
at night.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He
See?
may have had to convince me a couple of times because I said we were
The first time you said,
we were a little young.
Joe, we're kind of young.
Yeah.
All right, so you grew up in Pittsburgh. You ended up out here in California, though.
So anybody who wants to learn about Pittsburgh should watch Flashdance because
The noted documentary.
noted documentary of Jennifer
just a
Beals
steel
riding,
town girl on a Saturday
riding her
night.
bicycle through the rainy roads, taking the incline up to Mount Washington, where they worked in the blast furnace, and so you need to watch the Flashdance.
You do, and then
filmed there.
and then you can learn to dance, and that could be your way out.
That was not my way out. Just
You weren't so good at
saying.
playing and wearing
No.
what are those called, leg warmers? and
No,
stuff like
I was sort of the clunky girl on the gym floor trying to figure out how to dance.
So you're at Yins in Pittsburgh, and you get out of there.
Get out of there because my dad was out of work, and I went to work right out of high school.
Oh, you did?
So
Okay.
I learned shorthand. Sadly, not part of my
Really?
life
Okay.
anymore, but I still know typing.
Okay.
And a lot of other things, and went to work for the phone company in downtown Pittsburgh, which was a hoot. So I always love walking through and working in urban areas. The energy is so great, and the architecture is fabulous,
Right.
and really close to the park at the point. And it was just a lot of advantages. But then, as I said, we got married early, and Joe was still going to school, so we moved up to Cambridge, where I was working for the phone company.
Cambridge, Ma?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was working in downtown Boston. Same
Okay.
thing. Loved it. Took the train, and then he got a job in Colorado, and
okay.
so we lived there. An idyllic life, young, childless people, backpacking, hiking,
Oh man,
skiing.
body didn't hurt. You had a little bit of money, but it didn't matter.
Great.
Oh, and you're out in the Rocky Mountain
Yeah.
High. Okay.
Yeah, and then the job moved, and thank you to the voters of Roanoke Park, they approved the referendum approving the construction of the HP facility at now Sonoma Mountain Village, and so we transferred out here. Joe's parents had also moved out here. His dad was from the Bay Area, so it was nice to be close to relatives, and I just this is it. Aside from its potholed roads, and fiscal challenges.
I mean, I'm just saying,
and
did it all start when you arrived? I'm not saying correlation's causation.
really, and a few mega fires.
Yeah. Other than that, it's a
Other
lovely
than
place.
that,
Hey,
I
thanks for
love
coming on my
being
tourism podcast. You're really selling it, lady. So your husband worked for HP, Hewlett Packard, which became Agilent, which became Keysight.
Right.
They're no longer there. Things have changed. Did you work in government to run for office in school district or something?
No,
or
I
what?
had to go back to school because when I moved here, we had a home business and I needed to learn accounting and business stuff, advertising and all that. So I went back to the junior college. Got to say, I love our junior college.
SRJC.
Yeah.
Go Bear Cubs.
Right. So I started going to school in Boston University and then Colorado. Came here, went to the JC, and then proud graduate of SSU
Okay.
in political science and economics, which made so much sense to me.
Got it. Okay.
Growing up where we were moving cross country during the oil embargo,
Oh,
trying to figure out where we were going to fill up the car with gasoline.
and driving exactly 55 miles an hour.
Exactly. It was great, and we've lived here almost every other year combined. We've lived here 35 years, 36 years.
Okay.
And so we love it, never knowing that I would be convinced to run for office. So when I graduated from political science or from SSU, a friend of mine serving on the school board and said, "Would you consider running for the school board? We need you."
Wait, did you have kids at the time?
Yeah, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was a volunteer at the schools. I'd served on the budget committee for the school district, very involved in the League of Women Voters, and we had a conversation about that. And she said, "I really need you on the school board." And I said, "Okay."
Sign me up.
Sign me
Everyone
up.
loves the school board.
Everybody loves the school
Nobody
board.
complains to
My
the school
kids
board.
were in the schools, and I had no idea how to run for office. So someone suggested a political consultant, and my campaign budget was $5,000.
Okay.
So I had little half sheet cards and flyers, and
Was this for Santa Rosa?
the Santa Rosa School Board. It was a really big district.
That's the biggest district in the county.
Indeed. And
Probably the North
I
Bay.
don't know how I convinced the voters, but I won by 59 votes.
Oh, wow.
So every vote does count.
Yeah.
Every candidate running for office should hustle to start meeting people right and left
Okay.
because they remember. People remembered for a long time me
the guy in the
knocking
coffee
on
shop.
their doors.
Interesting.
And so, but we had problems hiring, recruiting teachers. They couldn't afford to live here. And it was during the real estate crunch of, I was elected to the school board in 96 through 2000. It was a really challenging time economically. So I ran for the Santa Rosa City Council thinking I could make a difference.
Okay.
And, I was outspent, managed out everything.
And that was no
I-
district elections. That was the entire city.
It was the entire city, and I landed with a thud. Boy, learned a lot about how not to run for
Okay, that's
election.
good. You discovered that.
I did, and I sort of said, politics not for me. Turn off the email, just do something else.
Okay.
Until Noreen Evans, city council member then, said, "I'm going to appoint you to the Board of Public Utilities." And I went, water, sewer. Really?
No one cares about it until it's not there anymore. Susan.
Really? And she said, and I said, "I know very little." And she said, "But you understand the politics of water, and you understand decision making and how to work together."
Okay.
And so I said, "Okay." And then I decided I was going to run for council again.
Okay.
And I was appointed by Steve Rabinowitz to the Planning Commission. Those two areas of expertise still remain with me. My knowledge of planning and zoning and water, certainly in Sonoma Valley, and understanding of the water contractor's needs and the water contractor and water wholesaler. It's all so relevant and important
Especially in
now.
California.
Especially in
If
California.
there's one thing we like to have politics about, it's our water.
So serving as mayor of Santa Rosa, I was the first progressive mayor of Santa Rosa, which is the fluke of the election. And mostly it was, I think I drew the short straw. It was at the depth of the recession from 2008 to 2010.
And the mayor is voted by the council itself, right?
And they sort of said, "Great, you can have it."
Here's the new kid.
Here's the new
She doesn't know any better.
And whatever agenda you have, just forget about it because you're going to be trying to prop up and keep those facilities running and negotiating with 18 bargaining units for concessions. So there again, you learn a lot.
And so that was so much fun.
So much fun.
You're like, city council is so much fun.
Once I was no longer mayor, it was no longer fun, even with
really?
all of that.
Really?
I said, oh, get me out of here. And I was ready to retire. And
So
do
you're going to go to a
something else
farm and retire and be
and do something else.
gentlewoman farmer. But then what
Yes,
happened?
Grow baby carrots.
Exactly.
And then the amazing former ambassador Ted Elliott and former council member Steve Rabinowitz took me out to lunch at the Breakaway Cafe, local establishment, sadly no longer with us, and said, you need to run for supervisor. Valerie Brown is going to retire.
Okay.
We want you to run. So someone from the Sonoma Valley and Santa Rosa, political heavyweights, came to me and said, you need to do this. And I gulped. Of course, you have to go home and have that conversation with that partner that you live with.
Yeah, and he's like, remember we were up on the inclinator on top of Mount
Yeah.
Washington, and
This was
we had a
not-
whole dream.
This is not the sweet young thing that I proposed
I
to.
did not think you were going to be knocking on doors on Oakmont, Susan. That's what he said. So so did he?
And he did support, and so we came to a good understanding. He's always been supportive and a mastermind, great political and common sense to me. So even though people don't even know that I'm married because I never take him to fundraisers, he gave that up immediately.
Does he not like them?
Oh, he hates them.
Yeah.
He's
My
introverted engineer. Hates
yes.
them.
My spouse, my wife, we go to some things and she's like, you don't have to take me to these. It's okay I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Occasionally I ask him, he said, no, thanks.
Yeah. That's so you ran for county supervisor.
And that was a hard race.
It's a big area. Like door knocking
And
is very
there
hard
were
to do.
6 or 7 running
really?
for that seat. It was an open seat, and it was a money race. And I was running, and I sort of knew the political calculus. The runoff was going to be between me and my council colleague, John Sawyer. Nice enough guy, but I didn't think represented the interests and values of Sonoma Valley.
Got it.
And boy, we made up.
You guys still talk to each other?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And he's grateful that I won.
Oh, good. Yeah. He's like,
But he was elected to the council again and doing
Right.
good things on the council.
I think he was mayor once or twice.
He was a really nice guy.
A jewelry store owner.
And still is a really nice guy, no longer on the council.
Let me ask you this. What advice, if it's election season, there's people probably out there sitting on that, like, should I get involved in politics? What advice you give to someone who wants to or doesn't want to? Like, what are your thoughts on someone out there?
Well, frequently people come to me and ask my advice on should they run and how can they effectively run and be successful. And my first advice is start with a home conversation. Because if you have a partner or family that's not supportive, you better think twice or 3 times about running, because it is a huge sacrifice on the part of families for you to be out a lot, either as an elected or certainly a candidate. But secondly, don't even think about running if you are emotionally unable to lose that election. That was my learning lesson when I lost that election, because my instinct was, ain't for me, I'm not doing this anymore. This just nuts. And I had to be sort of coaxed, dragged into that. But once I decided I was going to run again, because I still had the appetite, I decided 2 years in advance. I did my homework. I had the experience. I was out there talking to folks for 2 years, raising money for 2 years, and then I was the top vote getter in 2006, and then became mayor in 2008 to 10. So it was another 2 years later when Steve and Ted came to me and said, would you consider running? This is a big deal. This is even more of a money race than the city council. And
Large area.
a large area,
Right.
physically impossible to walk door to door because we have a lot of hills and
Rural too, yeah.
rural. And it sort of broke down where the ag and big business were supporting John, and I was supported by labor and neighborhood and local folks, community folks, because they knew that that's where my heart was. I'd always advocated for the community. So you need to pick your battles wisely, get the best political consultant, conversation and advice you possibly can, and recognizing it's going to be a huge, enormous time sink, and you're going to have to be out there raising money. It's not, even though the subsequent 2 elections were not nearly so exhausting and having me raise nearly the same amount of money, still I had people running against me. So you can't take anything for granted.
Take it for granted. Let me ask for people who don't want to run for office, but people who want to be good citizens and good, paying attention and just participate. What advice do you give to those people?
First of all, you have to do your homework still. It takes some time and energy to be an educated voter, just as you pointed out.
My homework.
Reading
Right.
through the ballot pamphlets.
Right.
But then more than that, I'm shocked that more people don't read newspapers. They have no idea what's going on in Sonoma Valley.
Okay, Susan, I have a suggestion. Before anyone posts any opinion on social media, Nextdoor, Facebook, whatever, they have to say whether or not they pay for their news through some system. And here we have the Sonoma Index Tribune, the Press Democrat, Sonoma Valley Sun,
Kenwood
Press. There's no reason to claim you don't know what's going on because there are people who, many of which they're not getting rich.
Right.
But they're just passionate about their communities who are going out of the way to go to the Planning Commission and the subcommittees and stuff like that to go. So I 100% agree. Like whenever I hear someone espouse something, I'm like, do you even read the flippin' newspaper? And they're like, no, I don't believe in it. It's biased. And I'm like, you are so...
It tries
my
your
eyes,
patience.
It tries. I get that eye twitch, and I'm like...
And you have to have that political smile. How can I respond
one of my
to
first
this?
jobs was a paperboy, right? So like I was delivering the murky news down there in San Jose, and I just could not believe.
Now I read digitally rather than
it doesn't
wait
have paper
to be developed, but newspapers are struggling across the board, and they do the best job they can to provide unbiased information to you, the reader. You just have to, whether you look at an article online or actually physically read the newspapers in the newsstand, it is your job as a citizen to know what's going on. I just attended the North Sonoma Valley MAC meeting, and I gave a slight update of the Sonoma Developmental Center. Yes, county lost that litigation. It's coming forward to the board, so I will just lay that out there.
No opining now. Okay, good. Yeah.
And there will be a project moving forward at some point. It's not going to be in my term. That's why I ran for election 3 years ago.
I'm out of
Years
here.
ago. But so it is, and the Hannah Center project next year, Spring Specific Plan that I found the money for 10 years ago, next year maybe. So there are a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish during my term, and I had to switch off the frustrated part of my brain and say, you know what, this is the way it is, and there's only so much that I could do, that I tried to do, and that I probably will contribute to after retirement. But I'm not going to be the decision maker that weighs in on those things. That's both a plus and a minus.
Which has been a big part of your life for the better part of 20 years now.
So I'm not exactly sure how we've had former supervisors, especially from the 5th District, come to the Board of Supervisors and make impassioned pleas and scolding and take me aside occasionally.
Oh, really?
When I popped a cork. No, can't do that. And I said I would never be them. Guess what? I just might be them.
You're like, okay, here's another question I have for you. Before we get to, I want to talk briefly about your project we just came from.
Yeah.
Many people who want to get involved go to a thing, they go to their first meeting. It's kind of confusing because the agendas have very specific terms. It's a very artificial way to talk, right?
Yes.
With the Brown Act and the way here in California you kind of talk amongst each other. What advice do you give to someone who's doing public comment and they want to speak to their elected official at a public meeting, which for some people, like I'm paid to talk, I can do it very easily. Some people are very nervous and they're very scared.
And still to this day, I'm nervous.
I get a little...
And sometimes I'm emotional. And
So what advice do you have for
tearing
people?
up and blocking up. Research the issue. If you're saying the same thing that 50 other people are saying, put a personal slant on it and not just repeat the same message that everybody else is repeating, knowing that your time is going to be very, very limited, because the more people who are there, the fewer minutes you will have for public comment. And the Sonoma City Council have said, we're going to take a half an hour, and then after that you can come back at the end of the meeting. The Board of Supervisors has done that as well. What has changed is that people living in Sonoma Valley could call in with a comment on issues. And since COVID and the Zooms and the Zoom bombs, we don't allow that anymore. So it is quite a distance for someone from Sonoma Valley especially, but other areas in the county, to drive to a daytime Board of Supervisors meeting to have 2 minutes to comment on something.
Okay, I'm going to pitch an idea to you. You're on your way out, so you can do this, right? You can institute this, and then you can flip the table and walk out. But you're absolutely right. During Zoom times, we had nefarious actors who would get on anonymously and say awful things.
Yes.
And that affected it. But then the solution we came up with was don't allow that anymore, which I think, to your point, if you're handicapped, if you don't have the money, if you don't have transportation, if you live way up in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to schlep down to Santa Rosa for a 10
Absolutely
o'clock.
true.
Here's my pitch. You can pre-record. Everyone's got a phone. You can pre-record your public comment. You can upload it. We have a producer. Essentially, what whoever does this podcast right now, that person could make sure there's no, there's certain guidelines, no racial slurs, nothing like that. But then if they have the comment, you could submit that comment and have it played either at that time or a different time, so people know, okay, so and so from Jenner, so and so from Shelville or the Springs has an opinion on this, but they certainly don't have the money or time to come in, but they still feel listened to, because I think that's a crucial part of it. All my ideas are free, and you get exactly what you pay for with my ideas, Susan.
And I know that about you.
But because I am on a public commission, and I feel so poorly for the people that come up, and they're so nervous, and they don't know what's going on. And I feel like I could just come by and go, well, here's what I would do if I were you, and here's how to talk to us.
You're right.
But give them a chance to do it.
And when we really had to have a serious look at the hate-filled comments that we were experiencing,
which was deliberate. There was a deliberate
and we
people.
knew that we were being targeted from across the nation.
Yeah.
We had to really think about alternative ways that we could still encourage verbal public comments.
Right.
And we worked with Zoom and many other media platforms. We could not come up with a way to do that efficiently, effectively.
Right.
And so I understand your free opinion, Tim, but no.
Execution's going to cost money. The idea is free.
And it's cumbersome. We are always available for email conversations
That's true.
and letters.
Yeah.
And many, many people do. And we have the clerk of the board providing those comments to the board members as they come in.
So when they email
So if someone sends a comment to me about the Sonoma Developmental Center or any other thing, I can forward it to the full board, and then all of them receive that public comment.
Oh, good. Okay. And they can kind of
So that's the responsibility of the decision maker, to read through sometimes very voluminous numbers of comments.
Right.
That is important. That's an important way to gather information about people's opinions about the issue at hand.
Does that sway decision makers when citizens and residents say, I think this? Do people listen to that?
Yes, absolutely. I listen very carefully, especially if it's an issue that affects my district and this person is from that surrounding area and it will affect them. I listen carefully. But just as importantly, I use their communication to pose questions about how this issue would impact the community, and maybe we could develop mitigations or different kind of conditions of approval so that it lessens the impact that they might have experienced in other ways. And in fact, that's really why we have the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Council. They, first of all, hear the development project, and they pose the questions, and then Permit Sonoma uses their advice to then formulate their own requirements or requirements about what the applicant needs to study or think about in the project application moving forward. Then that information, all of that information goes before the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Adjustments. They are the same, essentially. I have two members of the Planning Commission that I appoint, and we've had some changes over time.
Right.
But I bow down to their expertise.
Because they get into the weeds.
They really get into the weeds.
And they make recommendations that you can listen to.
So thankful to Greg Carr, who's been my planning commissioner since the beginning, for his yeoman's work on the Sonoma Developmental Center, the Spring Specific Plan. He comes from a very learned place because he was the deputy director of Permit Sonoma for a number of years.
Okay.
He says he will not go through another general plan. He's done that twice. So
done broke him.
So Rebecca Hermosillo, supervisor-elect, will have to find somebody to take his place to serve on the. And in fact, let me just say that the Permit Sonoma came to the board last meeting and presented a community engagement plan and to reach out to many, many stakeholders in Sonoma Valley and all over the county to begin to have conversations about the next general plan, which will roll out next year. I won't be part of that larger discussion,
right?
Maybe in smaller ways, but
maybe during public comment. Well, before we get to the answering people's questions, we just came from an area. I'm going to set this up. The Sonoma Valley has the city of Sonoma, which is the main city, and in your district also has Santa Rosa, which is another main city. Otherwise,
in fact, most of my district is within the boundaries of Santa Rosa.
Because of the population, right?
Yes.
You're trying to balance it there. But what's interesting is that there are unincorporated areas, two which are well-known, Glen Ellen and Kenwood, quaint little rural areas, a lot of wineries and things like that. The other one, which is where we just came from, is the Springs, also called the west side of Sonoma, which tends to be county land. It tends to be where people who are new to the country, people with less money, some families up on the hills, a little wealthier up there. But it's not as much, it's not as much resources as, say, the cities have. It's county.
And I think generally that's true. It is a very dense area, and we know of many economically disadvantaged folks working in hospitality and tourism, earning not nearly enough money. And they're living in very crowded, congested conditions, some of 2 or 3 families living together, and yet we have very intentional, wonderful folks with money who choose to live in the Springs because they love the vibrancy.
Well, I love the Springs.
Yes.
I will tell you, it reminds me of growing up in San Jose, parts of San Jose. It's very similar. You can walk down the street, hear Spanish, great food. What I like, and this is kind of like the project you're working on, I think this is like your out the door thing, is you've been working on a plaza, a community gathering place in the Springs, because it's bifurcated by a state highway.
Right.
But the state highway itself is sort of like a city street because it's businesses and residences, and so it's not a state highway. I mean, Caltrans treats it like a state highway, but it's really a city street.
If you want to do anything on it, it's a state highway.
God.
You need permission from the Caltrans guys.
Yes, although I've moved signs before and not told Caltrans. I'm like, why is this in the middle of the sidewalk? You're working on a plaza, a community gathering spot.
And can
you tell me about
this?
That?
Is not my idea. This has been the idea, the dream of former redevelopment that happened way back when. We said we need a gathering place in the Springs.
Right.
And this is a good location potentially because Caltrans, the transportation god, said you will not have 2 streets coming into the same intersection. So county, you will, as we widen that road, and that's another whole podcast about redevelopment, the dissolution of redevelopment, the county suing the state and getting the state to agree to reimburse the county for those improvements.
Okay. Sidewalks, street lamps.
Thank you, Valerie Brown, Michael Kale.
Bike lanes, looks great.
Everybody who had a role in that, and the many, many community members who were advocating for widening and improving that corridor.
Right.
So it was during the beginning of my term that I actually invited Valerie in for groundbreaking, ceremonial groundbreaking, and everybody says, "Oh, this is fabulous! Look at the sidewalks!" And we had sort of a disagreement with Caltrans. The county wanted 8-foot sidewalks, and Caltrans, no, you get 6-foot sidewalks and an 8-foot bike lane, which just confuses the heck out of everybody. But nevertheless, we have streetlights, maybe too many streetlights, not enough street trees because we have narrow sidewalks, but we have sidewalks and businesses who want to thrive and grow, and more are doing that as it's becoming a food mecca.
It is.
You and I just had lunch.
Sonoma Eats. Ephraim's, he's crushing it. I had great mole, and I think you had the shrimp tacos.
And we eat at La Hacienda, and I just had lunch. Treated people to Cafe Verano. I mean,
that's a good little spot, isn't it?
It is. Of course, Emilino Central. Can't forget them.
There's some really good spots.
So it's very exciting to see the food burgeoning.
So let me ask you, this little plaza you're working on, we just had a meeting there. The goal is to have a place where people can just go and it's non-commercial.
Right.
It's public third space.
It's a parking lot.
Well, okay, hold on. Vision with me. You're right. It's currently a parking lot. But what you did is, I love this. You just said, we're going to move those cars out. We're going to get Public Works to put up some blocks. And we're creating space, and I've already saw some kids where they're drawing some stuff, and I mean there were some teens. Well, there were some teens doing graffiti, but you know what? What I love about that is you essentially kids who don't have a place to play, like there's not a park nearby or a place. Here's a safe spot. I bet you parents can take their kids there to ride their bikes and learn how to ride their bikes. Exactly. There's going to be a big holiday event there.
The winter celebration at the beginning of December, where we hand out gifts and have Santa Claus there. And
you're smart because you got a Sonoma City Council member who's also a landscape architect to donate some designs.
Thank you, Ron Wellender, for your sketch that's guiding our vision. And it is, I love that. Well, first of all, back up. I've met my match with the county bureaucracy. I tried for 2 years, tried to partner with Ken Mattson. That did not go over well. And then I sort of put it on the back burner and said, we're going to do this.
Right.
And so I brought all the departments together. We're going to make this happen.
Right.
No one from the county understood that this was a project of the county.
Right.
They thought a community group was going to have to be responsible for this. I said, no, this is a county parking lot.
Right. We own this spot of land.
We own this.
Right.
And the community's come forward multiple times with visions and great ideas. And I have money that I've been safeguarding from the former redevelopment area to develop a real community plaza.
Right.
But it got very complicated with land use. Did you need a mitigated negative declaration? How can we
how many soil samples can you do?
Let me see. The county attorney said this. Permit Sonoma said that. And they're all saying, not me, not me. So it got really frustrating. Right. And I had this conversation with you, Tim. And you
crazy person,
out of the box thinker, and said, why are you trying to get the county to do this? Just do it. I said, what a great idea, because I have 4 months left on my term. I did run it past public infrastructure and our CAO, and they said, oh, great, just do it. So now they brought in the concrete blocks. They transported it from Roseland, which were no longer needed there.
I heard about that, yep.
And we're moving them to create a few more parking spaces. They put them in the wrong place. Yeah. And so my administrative assistant, Lupe Tovar, and I just put chalk circles on where trees would be in planter boxes. Can't dig up the asphalt.
Right, on the asphalt, right.
And trying to figure out where the picnic tables are going to be, where hopscotch court is that we could paint on the asphalt, and maybe a Foursquare.
I cannot wait for the Springs Foursquare tournament.
Oh, wouldn't that be cool?
Right, and the hopscotch exhibition, and maybe some double dutch going out there.
And
it's going to be awesome.
That.
Yeah.
And I had this cracked concrete driveway in the back of my home in Pittsburgh that was exactly Foursquares. And we had Foursquare neighborhood games all the time.
You don't need a lot
to
have fun if you just have a little bit of imagination.
That's right.
And I love that we're thinking incrementally. Like every time government gives you a big PDF, 11 by 17, all these pages, I'm like, this is not going to happen.
And we've been having great conversations with Enrique of Wine Country Tires. He is so excited about a community plaza. Of course, he has his food truck there.
Right there. Yeah.
And we already see people buying food and eating at the picnic tables. And he said, just get some receptacles and people can throw in trash, and I'll have my guys empty them.
Great guy.
And he said, we can provide water water and electricity to put twinkle lights on some trees. And so he's been absolutely amazing and welcoming. But we also had a visitor from the Home and Safe Village and saying, let me know what I can do to help.
Yeah.
And I said, great. Why don't I have a conversation
Right.
with Ted and Maria and everybody and say, how can we get some of the folks living at the tiny homes down there to
Participate.
come and
My
participate?
my brother-in-law in Virginia runs a program similar to that, where they use unhoused people or people in transitional situations. They help do the recycling in rural Virginia on bicycles.
Yeah.
And he's that kind of guy. He just kind of figures it out, So
I'm excited about what we can do with very little money. And I know that I have some substantial amount of money in escrow, but it's going to take that in order to move a process to do a design and build project there.
Which
it's going to have to take some environmental work for sure, which I think we're working on to understand what's underground, then acquire maybe another property, figure out where the parking is going to be, level off the plaza so it doesn't slope down.
Well, it's got
be
built-in
careful
drainage.
balls.
Built-in drainage.
Built-in drainage. Those balls are going to roll
Or
down.
if you're playing kickball, kick that way, so it comes back to you.
Might have to put some
put a net up
barriers
there or
in the
something like that.
concrete blocks.
Right.
So and I've heard from one of the ad hoc members of the Springs MAC that the skateboard folks are very excited about coming up, bringing their paint, doing some murals, doing some painting.
They did a good job at the new skate park over there.
I have to go over and investigate.
And I was looking around. We could even put up panels that people put murals on.
Exactly.
Along that fence, because there's some great murals in the
What we
Springs.
did talk about, since we noticed we have some lovely aspiring artists on the picnic tables.
Yes.
Probably not good. Please don't do that. We just bought them.
Well, maybe you can put a coating down that.
Well, what we are going to do is one of the members of the MAC, her husband's a general contractor. He's going to buy some plywood. We're going to paint it with blackboard paint and put some chalk there. And then just have people color.
It goes right back to the beginning. We the people.
We the people.
They're the ones that are doing
And
it.
we're going to have some wonderful signs and visions about what this park plaza is for, how it began, and how the community is going to become an even more important part of it.
They're a part of it. They're building it.
So I'm excited, even though I'm at the end of my term and I'm not going to be in the driver's seat for a beautiful new community plaza. I am so excited about the potential for this and the number of folks who are getting excited about it. So don't disparage it, protect it. This is your home.
I love that. All right. With that, thank you. That was wonderful. And that's exactly, I'm so glad you're working on that. And I think it's going to be a huge asset for people living there and people visiting and everyone driving through. It's going to look lovely. So.
Bring your kids there, play jump rope, adopt it, use it.
Perfect. All right. Susan, you ready?
Yes.
You know, in this podcast, we get to a section where you're going to help me do what we do every day. So we have two visitor centers. People call us, they ask us, they text us, they Facebook us, they everything. They ask us questions. You're going to help me answer some questions in a segment we call We Get Questions.
I'm used to that. Right. All the time, every Tuesday.
These are going to be questions that I hope are not as pointed as the ones that supervisors.
Hopefully not.
Okay, here's the first one we got. This is at the plaza. Someone came in and said, we are waiting to check into our hotel, but it's not until 3:00. So we have 4 hours on the plaza and want to taste some wine and have some lunch. Do you have any ideas?
Are they're talking about the Sonoma Plaza?
On this, touche. They're currently on the Sonoma Plaza.
Beautifully landscaped, treed with benches and picnic tables.
It does have a 200-year head start on the Springs Plaza, but yes.
And a little bit of a size advantage.
A little bit of a size advantage. And the fact that the city hall's in the middle of it.
And they maintain it.
Just other than that.
The best way to get to know a community is to hang out in the community. Bring your coffee, go to Basse Boulangerie, bring your sweets, bring your lunch, go to the picnic table, people watch, check out who's walking through the park, look at the ducks, have fun with the ducks.
Gotta have the ducks.
And imagine what history has created, 150 years ago in deeding that plaza for the community. So we are creating that history at right next to the historic rail depot in Boys Hot Springs. That's historic building.
That's right. That's right. Because where the old train would come in for the excursion trains.
Train tracks ran right up Sonoma Highway.
Yeah.
And so just envision that you're sort of waiting for a train. Maybe that should be one of the murals.
Oh my gosh,
of
waiting
a
for the train.
with people with suitcases.
The boys. I love that.
And
Some people can make like sculptures
indeed
of waiting for the train.
I want to see art blossom, and I would even contribute. The other exciting thing is I love public art.
Yeah.
I have not been able to get a public art program adopted by the board yet. It's sort of sad for me.
You got 3 months.
It's not going to happen in 3 months. Okay. But I am not above begging and pleading for public money to do art.
Yeah, I love that.
And we've used our tourism impact funds to hire Artscape to paint the little utility boxes along Highway 12.
Which are really neat.
More to come.
Okay.
The Caltrans, we signed the contract with Caltrans, so
Okay.
there's more to come. I'd love to paint the retaining walls along Highway 12 with murals. Love to paint the side of the Matson building with murals, but it's actually the Center Plaza building. No, we cannot paint that yet.
Right. If you don't own it, you can't paint it.
Can't paint it.
Right.
But we have asphalt.
Yeah.
Let's paint a mural on the asphalt.
You can do a lot of things.
Or use that chalk. We could have chalk art contests.
Yes.
As they do in many cities.
So, quick answer to the question, go to the plaza, hang out, see people. I'm going to say real quickly, you mentioned the Basque. You can also go Mary's Pizza Slice Shack. If you want a quick slice of pizza to chill there, you can go to Girl in the Fig. You can go to El Dorado Kitchen.
Sunflower Cafe. You can hardly get a seat at. The
It's
Red
a
Grape.
beautiful garden.
You know, all of my favorite. And I just had lunch at I'm going to get the name. Della.
Oh, Della Cecina. Yeah, it's a good spot.
Fabulous lunch.
People don't get Italian food enough. Every time I go to an Italian restaurant, I'm like, I need to go to get more Italian food.
And every time you turn around, there's another new restaurant opening.
I like that. I know. A new coffee shop coming in.
I don't spend a lot of time wine tasting.
Right. Why? Because you live here?
Yeah, I live here, and I'm not going to go pay $15 for wine tasting.
I will tell you what, though. You could get the Plaza Tasting Pass, which we have, and that allows you, for $69, you have access to 3 wineries. You can choose out of 11, and so it's roughly 50% off tasting.
And hopefully they're staying here and not driving.
Right. No, they're chilling here.
I actually have to drive 30 minutes up the road.
There.
So
yeah, no, so
I'm
don't
very
drink and
careful
drive.
of my consumption.
Right. Stay here, walk around, or get a driver. Okay, another question.
A lot of water.
Another question for you. We just got into town, and someone said to go to look at the Mission. What is the Mission, and why should we visit it?
That is such an excellent question. Yeah. It took me so long to figure out what is the Mission. And you will have to, really explore history. But just go to north of the plaza. Mm-hmm. There's the Hotel Toscana. There's the barracks up there that you can peek in and walk through. And try to envision from any of the pictographs or drawings what it was like at the very beginning.
Right.
What it was part of the mission system. And we have to remember the Bear Flag Republic. This was the capital of California.
For a brief, shining 21 days.
That's right. And then Santa Rosa stole that state
Well,
capital.
no, okay, so that's so Santa Rosa, okay, now that's something we got to talk about later.
We could have
when Santa Rosa stole the county seats. And Sonoma has not forgiven Santa Rosa.
No, they haven't, but the consolation prize is Sonoma has stayed small and beautiful.
We have the plaza.
And you have the plaza. And look at Santa Rosa.
They've got 101 and the mall.
Yeah, and I worked for years on Reunified Courthouse Square, and their plaza.
It's in the process of becoming.
Oh, it is so.
Remember?
It's a sea of concrete.
They're working on it. The Mission is
beautiful artwork. However,
beautiful artwork. The Mission is the last mission built by the Spanish. Came here as part of their conquest of California. They would plant missions or churches, and the goal was to convert people. That really actually means Native Americans and the indigenous. It did not go well for the Native Americans, the indigenous. So just to be very
so glad
clear.
You said that.
It was like just to be very clear.
For Native Americans.
And also the Spanish Empire. They used the church as a way to kind of advance the army too.
Of course.
And they were trying to keep the Russians, believe it or not, at bay, who were coming down from the north. And also the British were kind of had designs like, we want this part of California. So you can go visit the Mission and see the different, as you mentioned, time frames that occurred between the Spanish period, the Mexican Empire period, the California Republic period, the Italians that came here went to Toscano Hotel. So it is an interesting time. I think they do a good job grappling with history and the way we understand our history and how we talk about our history and how we contextualize it. The state parks do a great job. It's $3. Go visit the mission.
It's well worth your time to visit, and you can understand and appreciate the crude living conditions that people were living in.
Yeah, and they were short.
Even in moderate Sonoma County, it still gets darn chilly in the winter.
And this was the, pardon my French, this was the ass end of the empire, so they did not care. So when you were sent up here, you were like the back and beyond. You were just like, go out there. Yeah, and
And I think everyone should really get an education of the very sad treatment that we have perpetrated on our Native Americans. The Trail of Tears and moving across the nation is just horrible.
Susan, I think it's funny, not funny, but like when I look at how people of different times were educated about Native Americans, I think my kids received a much more clear understanding of it than maybe my parents might have. But an insight I have, did you know that like in like 1955 to like 1965, the number one shows on American television were Westerns. Yeah. And there were like 78 Westerns on TV in this period. And so a lot of what we learned back then was maybe like mythologies based upon entertainment.
Send the cavalry.
Right. So, and some of these were big stories, and all those movies that might not have been an accurate representation of actual history until you go back to the source material.
Essentially, that movement west, Horace Greeley, was a land grab.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
We really didn't care how many people we annihilated and chased off the land.
It's we grapple with our history, It's
we do. And it's really good to approach it with an understanding of what really happened.
Yeah, and I think the mission, if you go there, like often people say that about the mission, they said, go look at their exhibits. They're constantly reinventing how they look at it. So,
and we have some amazing historical societies here that document both in Glen Ellen and certainly Sonoma Valley.
Oh, we've got 3 competing ones in Sonoma.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't say their names; they'll show up. You say,
I know you forget one.
What about me? Okay, here's a question we got. We got 2 more that we're done here. I love this question. What should we do with babies?
Cuddle them.
When they ask, I'm like, in general or in Sonoma?
We should be in the business of procreating them. I'm not sure where that question is going. If we're in Korea, their business is procreation.
And that's everyone's on the back end of the demographic dividend. Yeah, we're having some problems here. I think this question was about, I have a baby already, and I'm coming to Sonoma. So they've already figured out the procreation. Yeah, so they figured that out. So here's the question. Maybe what they're asking, I'm inferring this.
This is good. You're good. You're good in context.
Yeah. What should we do with babies in Sonoma?
That's a great question. And it's been 45 years since I had a baby in Sonoma. And I've had grandbabies in Sonoma. I would say, number one, depends on the age of the baby, but if you are older than a baby, Train Town.
Oh, Train Town's a great one.
People come
1-year-olds and up can go there.
Miles to go to Train Town. It is a great experience. Yeah. But the plaza also has, thank you to the Rotary, newly energized Tot Lot.
Yeah, the little park's
fabulous little swings and slides and places for kids to dig around in the sand. Yep. And don't forget, the kids like to walk. Maybe not far.
Right.
But we have the Sonoma Overlook Trail.
It's a good one.
And just feed them raisins along the way.
Well done.
And maybe you can get them to the top if you're really energetic.
Feed them little raisins
raisins or carrots.
Kids love
really
that stuff. Isn't it weird?
Yes.
Yeah, that's smart.
High glycemic.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah,
yes,
get the sugar going. Yeah, I like that.
Just keep going.
Well, and then also at the end, you can take them to the ice cream shop. Go to Sweet Scoops, go to Chocolate Cow.
Yes, the infamous Ron Wellender said there's a scoop waiting for you.
I know.
Isn't
that Ron?
You need to come over here.
Ron's trick to get you to a meeting is he promises you ice cream.
Yes.
And then you leave with 5 things to do.
Well, and I do the same thing. I invite him out for lunch, and I say, I have this idea, Ron.
Yes, we back and forth each other.
He no longer wants to accept invitations from me.
That's terrible.
But you could go outside of Sonoma.
You absolutely could.
Maxwell Farms Regional
Oh,
Park.
yeah. Well, I mean, you can go the whole valley. You can
Newly
go, that's a great park.
renovated.
Yeah.
If you wander up to Kenwood, they have great park.
Yeah, the Kenwood Community Park, or Depot Park. It's
by the
beautiful.
Kenwood Depot.
Yep.
And so parks up and down. And if you have older kids, we have regional parks.
Yeah.
Sonoma Valley Regional Park. You can
Easy
go
to hike,
hiking.
flat, parts of it.
Sugarloaf,
Glen Ellen.
not for
That'd be
necessarily
like teenagers.
the babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe like adventurous, middle schoolers.
Indeed.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And connecting kids to nature is the most rewarding and most important thing to do.
Right.
And just take the time. Watch them play with rocks.
They love it.
Watch them play with water. I had a great time one winter watching my grandson trying to build a dam around the gutter of the driveway, trying
yeah.
to stop the water. Oh,
Hours of entertainment.
let's get another rock. Wait, we didn't do it.
I can just see your husband with the hose around the corner, like more water.
Enough rain that Christmas.
Keep me busy.
Christmas.
All right, that's right. That's a good answer. And so the supervisor says first have the babies, and then once you have them, go to all these different things.
And expose them to history and to people and take them out in restaurants, and because they need socialization. And
slap that up.
And of course, hug them. And if you have a village of relatives, let them have it.
Good. I love that. I was going to say slap the iPad out of their hands. Get them out there into the world.
Get the phones out of their hands. Yes.
Well, see the world, kid.
This is world time.
Go see it. Okay, here's the final question I got for you. This one came in today.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you're here to help me answer it. I've been quite busy in my career. It's a demanding job that entailed a lot of decision-making and scrutiny. Now that I'm retiring, I would like some ideas on things to do in Sonoma Valley that don't require me to attend meetings, adhere to budgets, or hear complaints. Do you have any ideas?
I may have a few ideas. What I tell people is this supervisor is not going to retire. She's going to be engaged in community projects, just as the Springs Community Plaza. And my retirement gift that will take me till the day I die probably is the Sonoma Valley multi-use path.
Okay.
From Agua Caliente Road to Melita Road. And you can imagine how challenging that is. It's like the Napa Vine Trail on steroids.
Susan, you probably don't remember this. When I first took the job here, I was working at Sonoma County Tourism. I came down here. One of the first things you said to me, you gave me this enormous PDF, and you said, we need to do a trail all the way down to Sonoma from Santa Rosa.
Yes.
And here's the plans. We've been working on it for like 30 years. What can you do? And I said,
You said, good luck.
I'm right on it, Susan.
Well, I was at the Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers holiday event, and I said, I'm going to need your help because there are a lot of wineries that will really love to have a Sonoma Valley Trail there for visitors and recreational riders alike.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of vines and a lot of right-of-way to
Some easements we got to do, yeah.
And I had a number of people say, sign me up. I'm willing to go. A lot of folks who are cyclists out there.
Yeah.
But Michael Muscardini, he's maybe my age, maybe a little older. He looked at me and he said, are we going to be young enough to ride a bike when this is done? I said, maybe not.
I'll get you a scooter.
We're going to get Bo Sapper with his three-wheeled
Yes,
scooters
his little
out there,
okay. I've got,
and we'll put little pennants in the back.
right.
And
You'll have fun. All right, so that's true. So if this theoretical person was going to retire, it sounds like they're not going to retire. They're going to stay active and engaged.
Yeah.
However, I could say to that person, they could do things like join the Sonoma Splash swimming pool. And take classes there. They could go on a Sonoma Adventure bike rental.
See, there we go.
They get e-bikes are very easy to get around.
And be careful. I've fallen on an e-bike.
Well,
Not
and then
fun.
right, so
Be
they could
careful.
carefully go on an e-bike. They could go up to Robert Ferguson Observatory.
That is a fabulous thing. We used to take our kids to the SRJC Observatory all the time. It was the best nap time I ever had.
Well, they were at I was at the Botanical Garden for an event, and the observatory was there setting up. I saw Saturn through a telescope, and I know I say it blew my mind. I was like, I cannot believe I'm seeing Saturn. It was so clear and so amazing.
Well, the last 2 nights
cool.
I've been just agog with the supermoon and the full moon.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
Out.
Don't take it's like taking a photo of the Grand Canyon with your phone.
No.
You can't get it.
The first night I did because it was coming up behind Sugarloaf, and I had just enough light on Sugarloaf that I could see the gorgeous moon. Last night was just a dot.
I just get a dot on my phone. Yeah,
fuzzy dot, because I have horrible iPhone.
So if you're going to observe the heavens, you could also join, for example, Sonoma Petaluma Parks and be a volunteer there.
Right.
You could go to Safari West, which I think you've been to once or twice.
And bring a credit card.
But you can see the lemurs for free. And ready for this? Like you could do things like in January, the full moon sound healing from Euphoria Arts. And they do like some sort of artistic thing. This will be at Flatbed Farm. So they're going to be, you could go do that.
The next full moon. Well,
this is in January. Yeah, this will be the January one.
And hopefully it's not raining then.
It's kind of a wellness thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I also told this person who asked me this question, they could always volunteer at the Visitors Center. We always are looking for volunteers. It's a 2-hour shift. You work with the worst people. You have to listen to this podcast. Other than that, it's a great job. And it's a fun time, and people they're having a good time. So it's a good game.
There are so many ways that people could volunteer.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody who's bored to start exploring, because the minute you go out, the minute you engage, the minute you meet with visitors and the community alike, you are filled with happiness and gratitude that we live in such a beautiful place, and that you want to share that, especially for the folks who want to come and enjoy it and then go home.
Well done. And you know what? I've got nothing else to say to that, Susan. I'm going to leave it at that. Susan, if people want more information about you, I'm assuming they can find you on the Sonoma County webpage for the next 3.5 months.
And it's very easy, susan.gorin at sonoma-county.org.
Okay, so.
And if you want to sign up for my district newsletter, just drop me a note.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey, Susan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been wonderful having you here, and I wish you luck for your next, 2.5 months of accomplishments. And then also it sounds like the next multiple decades of what's going to be next.
And then invite me back in about 4 or 5 months to figure out what it is I am doing in retirement.
I will check in with you and see what's there. So, and after you sign up for Susan's district email, please go to sonomavalley.com for deals, special offers, and events. Quick reminder, we're in the middle of Black Cod Week. Go out there and try some black cod. It's a special fish, sustainable, help the local fisher people. And then also Saturday, November 23rd is the lighting of the Sonoma Plaza. Come down to Sonoma. It's the brightest night in wine country.
And we will have some lights in the future community plaza.
I love it. It's done. So with that, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.